Spyro: A Hero's Tale. What an interesting game. First of all, it's an open world adventure, ditching the traditional Spyro levels and making the entire world one large playable adventure. Secondly, there are infinite gems in the game. If you kill an enemy, you can come back and immediately kill them again and again for more gems. So what type of challenge run could I do with such a different Spyro game? Well, naturally, I wanted to know, could you beat the game without breaking any chests? But there's a huge problem right at the very start of the game. This locked gate blocks our path, and you need one lockpick to open it. Lockpicks cost 500 gems, and there are only 300 gems lying on the ground. Since you can't reach any other areas, you are forced to break some chests to continue. So sadly, you can't beat this game without breaking any chests. Alright, let's try something else. Could you beat this game without killing any regular enemies then? Nah, you can't do that either. One of the boss fights includes regular enemies as a mandatory part of the fight. So, it's another failed challenge. Well, what challenge can I do then? After some deep pondering, I cooked up this challenge. What is the minimum number of chests and enemies needed to beat the game? My goal is to beat the game by destroying as few chests and enemies as possible. To keep things super simple, any object in the game that has gems inside will be considered a chest. So normal treasure chests, most of the dark shards, and any random stone or object that has gems inside will be avoided. And just for fun, I'm not going to open any of these locked chests as well. So here's the game plan. First of all, destroy all 40 dark gems and defeat the final boss Red. Secondly, avoid breaking as many chests as possible. Thirdly, avoid killing as many regular enemies as possible. And finally, collect as many dragon eggs and light gems as I possibly can. As usual, this is a blind run, so I haven't watched anyone else play this before. I'm playing this on my Xbox 360, so there might be a few glitches and visual issues, but overall we should have a smooth gameplay. With all that said, let's begin. Our adventure had begun, and Spyro wasted no time in picking up any gems he could find on the floor. We had found 300 gems, but we needed 200 more to buy a lockpick to open the door. There is a different area beyond this ledge, but sadly we can't reach it without double jumping. So, Spyro had no choice but to destroy 2 dark shards, and then sacrifice 4 brave chests. With 6 chest casualties, we used the blood money to buy a lockpick, and we opened the gate. But could we beat the rest of the game without murdering any more chests? Luckily, there's quite a lot of gems thrown around on the floor. And after learning how to double jump, we could smash our first dark gem. Double jumping was useful for avoiding most enemies. And Spyro found his first dragon egg, and then a light gem. The dark gem destruction continued, and we enlisted the help of Sergeant Bird to help us find some goodies. But bad news, I'm afraid. His secret missions always involve killing some type of enemy. So, we're not going to use him this playthrough. But Spyro kept smashing, and the light gems kept rolling in. We made a new friend called Blink the Mole, who loved to explore underground. Now, all of his missions involve destroying dark shards, but these dark shards are special. They don't have any gems inside. So, technically, by my definition, these shards are not a chest. So, bombs away. Some of these shards were very hard to reach, and the machine gun spiders kept sniping us every chance they got. It seemed impossible to get across. But I was a bit cheeky, and I figured that you can climb on top of the platform to avoid getting shot. This allows us to destroy the shard without killing any spiders. The rest of the level was a breeze, and after going back for round 2, we added 1 egg and 1 light gem to our collection. But back on the surface, Spyro was having some pole dancing lessons, and some locals wanted help defending their property. But these missions involve shooting enemies, so sadly we will have to skip every single one of these turret sections. At this point we had 10 light gems in our pocket, which means we can use the ball gadget to reach new areas. This doesn't seem right. The ball was a bit weird to use. I had some trouble with the controls and I broke a few boxes containing gems, but after quitting and trying again, there was a much safer path to the left. The final section had 3 boxes blocking the path. With a well-placed jump, only one box needed to be broken. But could there be a better way? I spent a stupid amount of time jumping around like an idiot, but with the perfect angle and some lucky jumps, I was able to make it up and skipped all the boxes. Look at that, boys, it's beautiful. The time was rolling on, and Dragonfly Falls was next. There were stacks of treasure. There were plenty of dark gems to smash, and an evil German man who kept smacking me on the head. This guy was seriously annoying, and his goats were just as evil. But somehow we made it through, and Sparks wanted to go spelunking. The first level wasn't too bad. Just fly around and don't get hit. And we made it to the end without too much trouble. But the follow-up level for the light gem was much harder. There are these blue lizards with these crazy tongue attacks. The tongue is very hard to avoid, and after a silly number of deaths, I gave up. But perhaps Hunter could do better in this section. Most enemies were easy to dodge, but enemies on platforms were a bit trickier. After baiting the enemies into attacking, Hunter kept moving forward, grabbing a dragon egg and a light gem on the way. Spyro destroyed the final dark gem in this realm. The powers of darkness were weakened, and we had an awkward moment with a doppelganger. After 6 years, it was time for a rematch with Nasty Nork. It was a pretty simple fight, and the power of electricity now flowed in our veins. The first realm was clear, and our current casualties stand at 6 chests and 0 enemies. A pretty good start to the challenge. Red was in a bad mood, and he had taken over the Ocean Kingdom.
Now, all of you,
But there was treasure to find, and more pole dancing to be done. After booking a scenic flight to the cloudy domain, Spyro made short work of the dark gems. There were quite a few annoying enemies who tried to slow us down, but they could not stop our light gem obsession. Back on the surface, Blink wanted to dig for more treasure, but the spiders were absolute jerks. My bombs kept accidentally killing them, so a more tactical approach was needed. With just the right angle and really good timing, the shard can be destroyed without hurting those spiders. But they still love to hurt me. After a lot of patience and a little bit of luck, we were able to destroy the shards without getting sniped. But the deeper we went, the harder the level became. Seriously, these spiders have no chill. It took some creative use of cover to survive their attacks. But even when things were going well, they always found a way to hunt us down. But after an eternity of dodging cobwebs, somehow, with one bomb left, we were able to destroy the final shard, collect the light gem, and finally explore the ocean depths. It was a pretty chill section, and after a refreshing acid bath, our collection kept growing. The next Sparks mission was in sight, and I promise you, I tried my best. But I just could not get through this without dying. So for my sanity, I had to give up on trying to get this light gem. But Spyro was having much more success, and he bulldozed his way through the temple. With all 20 dark gems destroyed, it was time for a nice reward. We had found over 5,000 gems lying on the floor. So, to celebrate, we purchased a health boost for Sparks, giving us 4 total hit points. With the barrier removed, it was time to kill a mermaid. With another boss defeated, we added a new power to our arsenal. We cleared this realm without destroying any chests or hurting any enemies. So, I was feeling pretty optimistic about the rest of the run. We had made it to the 3rd realm, and Red was scheming away again. Frostbite Village was a pretty chill place, and Blink went for his 3rd adventure underground. Enemies were a lot more aggressive in this section, and we kept getting sniped off the monkey bars. But after some expert dodging and some carefully placed C4, we accomplished our mission. The light gems kept growing in number, but Spyro was in trouble. And it was up to Hunter to save the day. Now this section is where our pacifism sadly comes to an end. Our old mate Bentley needs help clearing out some Yetis from his house. But the gate to the next section is locked, and no number of attacks or jumping can get us through. It broke my heart, but after taking the lives of 5 enemies, Bentley finally opened the gate. But just when things couldn't get any worse, we were locked in a room with some Skelly boys. They were summoned by an evil wizard who is sadly immune to all our attacks. I tried running away from the battle, but all the exits were blocked. There was no skipping this fight. We had to kill again. Now the skeletons are immune to normal arrows, but after farming enough fire arrows, the bone fire began. After sending 12 skeletons back to the grave, the gate finally opened. I was careful to not touch any gems dropped from the skeletons. We didn't want any blood gems in our wallet. But more challenges were waiting ahead. The big boy Yeti made it quite difficult to hit the target. But a well-placed fire arrow did the trick, and one more casualty was avoided. The bats in this next room were incredibly aggressive. And after panicking through all the chaos, Sparks wanted to go on another rescue mission. It was a pretty hard section, but thanks to having 4 hit points now, we were able to just scrape through and secure the light gem. Our boy Spyro was in sight, and with one last arrow, the adventure could continue. The Ice Citadel was filled with goodies, but there was another locked door guarded by an enemy, and it would not open unless the big boy is dead. So, with much sadness, we paid the cost, and we were allowed to progress. Dark gems were smashed, walls were kicked, more treasure was collected, and enemies were dodged. But the pressure in the boiler room was rising, and the hatch on the wall was sealed shut. Can you guess what opens it? That's right, the death of our enemies. We precisely executed all 6 enemies in the room, and the valve popped open. So much death. What type of monster were we becoming? After smashing our 30th dark gem, the showdown with Red was about to start. We were making short work of his health, but he knew our weakness, and he summoned 5 enemies to defend himself. The fight doesn't progress unless you kill the enemies. So, after 5 more unavoidable deaths, we could finally defeat Red. This realm was a nightmare. and we killed a disgusting amount of enemies just to progress the story. But on the plus side, we can now freeze things with our breath, and we can move on to the final realm. Red was on the run, and we had reached the final realm. Spyro carefully avoided the traps, and a great bounty of gems was scattered all on the ground. But a new enemy was approaching. Behold, the Fire Imp. This enemy is an absolute jerk. He tracks your every movement, and he's an absolute pain to try and get past. It took some creative jumping to get through, but things were going to get much worse. The Fire Imps kept multiplying, and they showed no mercy. Even if you could squeeze past them, your reward is even more Fire Imps. It was enough to make someone insane.
What are you laughing about?
We tried looking for alternative paths, but everywhere we went, the imps found us. There was no escape. Took a stupid number of attempts, but with a pinch of luck, we were able to just squeeze through. Just when things were getting quiet, the torture continued. Yet despite many deaths, I had finally mastered my enemy's movements. There was one last Sparks level to go. And despite it being the last level, it was actually the easiest. The final fight was a flaming phoenix surrounded by a decagon of fire imps. But you don't have to fight back at all. And after reaching the end, the light gem was safe. The end was in sight, and Spyro yearned for the mines. There were some narrow passages ahead, but with some creative tactics, we squeezed through. Our next dark gem was guarded by 3 robot boys on turrets. And for extra security, it was kept nice and safe inside a cage. I'm sure you can guess what's going to happen next. Deeper into the mines we go. Blink had one more adventure planned, but we ran into one massive roadblock. This shard was religiously guarded by this spider. I couldn't find any way to destroy the shard without either breaking a chest or killing the spider. So, this rescue mission cannot be completed. The platforming was getting tighter, and the game demanded more enemy blood to continue. It wasn't easy, but somehow I found the perfect angle to slip past this big boy. But the next doorway was a real challenge. After nearly 40 minutes of trying to squeeze past this guy, I just could not find a way through. Killing him was the only option. It felt dirty, but there was no way to get past this guy without picking up some of the gems. But the next room was even worse. There was an enemy standing on top of a switch that we need to press. You can't climb up the wall without hitting the switch. So you have to kill this guy to keep going. But I wanted to be sure, so I quit out and tried again. But when I loaded back into the game, I was shocked to see that I had spawned above the enemy. It turns out that when I first walked into the room, Zoe the fairy had zapped me, saving my progress. So, we had a checkpoint above the big boy. This means, by quitting out, I completely skipped his murder. Hooray! Another life has been saved. Calm down, calm down. Don't get too excited. There are a huge number of doors ahead that require enemy deaths to open. It took many deaths, but we had finally reached the last dark gem. With all 40 dark gems destroyed, the barrier fell and the final fight with Red could begin. Now Red's a bit of a cheeky boy, and he unleashed a wave of homing mines against me. But lucky for us, they explode by themselves, so I didn't count these as enemies dying. It took a combination of rockets, electrocution, and betrayal, but we finally did it. We had finally defeated Red. Our mission was complete. With a full arsenal of powers and breaths, I was able to backtrack and collect some extra light gems and treasure that I had missed. After completing all that I could, what was our final result? In total, I was able to collect 37 dragon eggs and 67 light gems on my adventure. Ignoring 200 gems from chests and 204 gems that I could not avoid picking up from enemies, I found a total of 11,627 gems lying on the ground. A total of 2 dark shards and 4 chests were destroyed in the entire playthrough, for a minimum total of 6 chest containers required to beat the game. Now, if some clever person can figure a way to get on top of this ledge without double jumping, it might be possible to make this 0. And finally, it took a minimum number of 42 enemy deaths to beat the game. Nearly all these deaths are necessary to open a gate or a door. So, without some crazy glitch, I think 42 is the minimum. Well, there you go. I know this run was a little different to my normal ones, but it's fun to see how it worked out in the end. Thanks so much for spending your time with me and for watching my Spyro adventures. I hope you have a great week and I look forward to seeing you in another video soon. God bless.